The chamber lights dimmed automatically as the negotiation entered its next phase. Valera sat with a calm posture, but inside her mind, something sharp and restless began to move. She had faced world rulers, warlords, and telepathic races, but none of them made her feel this uneasy. Ellie was still sitting casually, one leg crossed over the other, as if he were talking to an ordinary visitor, not the galaxy's most feared diplomat. Valera spoke first. "Commander Ward," she said slowly, "I want to understand you." Ellie raised an eyebrow. "Understand me? Why?" "Because you are not reacting as you should," Valera replied. "Most beings feel my presence. They feel my mind touching theirs. They break before I even need to speak." A few humans in the chamber shifted uncomfortably. They knew she was not lying. Many alien diplomats had collapsed under her mental pressure. Valera leaned forward. "But you sit there like a stone. Why?" Ellie rested his elbows on the table. "Maybe you overestimate your power." Something inside Valera twisted at those words. No one had ever told her that. Not once. Not in her entire political career. She tried to read Ellie's mind again, sending a subtle wave of psychic pressure toward him, a force that had made battle-hardened soldiers cry. Ellie blinked once, just once. Nothing else happened. Valera sat back slowly. Impossible. He should be overwhelmed. He should feel pain. At the very least, he should show discomfort. But Ellie simply stared back at her like he was observing a strange animal. "You cannot feel it, can you?" Valera said. Ellie shook his head. "Feel what?" "My influence," she said quietly. "My pressure." "I feel nothing," Ellie answered. Valera's fingers curled around the edge of her seat. She was not angry. Not yet. But she was unsettled. This human was breaking the rules of how the galaxy worked. She tried a different tactic. Words. "You know," Valera said, "I once convinced an entire star alliance to surrender with 6 sentences. 6. They begged for mercy when I finished." Ellie nodded. "I read that report." "And?" He shrugged. "Doesn't impress me." Valera's eyes narrowed, their glow darkening. "You should be impressed." "You think too highly of yourself," Ellie replied simply. Gasps filled the chamber. Even the human advisors looked shocked. Valera Threx was not a being you spoke to that way. But Ellie did. Valera stood up slowly. Her tall shadow stretched across the table, covering Ellie. Her voice dropped to a cold whisper. "I could crush your will in seconds." Ellie looked up at her. "Then why haven't you?" She froze. For a brief moment, the entire room fell under a silence, so heavy that even the air felt afraid to move. Valera stared at him, and Ellie stared back with the calm of a man who had already accepted danger. He wasn't bluffing. He wasn't pretending. He truly wasn't afraid. Valera slowly returned to her seat, her mind racing. Why? Why was he immune? What made this human different? She studied him carefully now, not with arrogance, but with growing curiosity. Ellie closed the treaty document and placed it aside. "Let's talk honestly," he said. "Why do you want our technology?" Valera didn't answer immediately. She wasn't used to being questioned. She wasn't used to explaining herself. But she answered anyway. "To protect my people," she said. "By taking from mine," Ellie replied. Valera's jaw tightened. "Your technology is dangerous, if in the wrong hands. And you think your hands are the right ones." Ellie cut in. Valera felt a strange heat in her chest. Not anger. No, it was something more unsettling. He wasn't wrong. She pushed her emotions aside. "Commander Ward, you misunderstand. This is not about power. This is about survival. The galaxy is changing. There are threats you do not know. Beings far worse than me." Ellie's expression softened slightly. "Then talk to us, Valera. Not as a ruler. not as a threat, as an ally. Valera's breath caught for a moment. Ally. No one had called her that in years. People feared her, obeyed her, respected her power. But ally, that word tasted foreign. She looked around the room. Every human was watching her. Not with fear, not with hatred, but with expectation. Ellie leaned forward. Is that what you really want? Protection for your people, or control over everyone else? Valera didn't answer, because she wasn't sure. For the first time in her life, a human, one human, had cornered her in a way she could not escape. Not with words, not with psychic pressure, not with threats. This was not a negotiation anymore. This was a mirror, and what she saw in it unsettled her deeply. The galaxy had always feared Valera threats. But now she feared something else. What humans might become if they were not controlled, and what this one human might be capable of, if pushed. For the first time in her career, someone had spoken to her like an equal. No fear, no hesitation. And deep inside her, a small spark of something new appeared. Not anger, not disrespect. Something she had never felt before. Doubt. Silence filled the room after Ellie's words. Every human in the chamber watched Valera carefully, waiting for her reaction. They had seen powerful alien leaders before, but Valera was different. Her presence felt like a storm waiting to break. Valera slowly straightened her posture. She was taller than any human present, her silver-blue skin reflecting the chamber lights. Her expression was calm, but something sharp now hid behind her eyes. You say humans are not weak, she said softly. Then show me. Ellie didn't move. He simply folded his hands on the table. I already am. Valera expected a fight, a defensive reaction, a desperate argument. But Ellie's stillness was worse. He did not raise his voice. He did not show fear. He did not try to explain himself. He simply stood firm, and that made Valera feel something she hated. Uncertainty. She turned her attention to the other humans in the chamber. Most looked nervous. A few avoided eye contact. Some were sweating. Yes, she thought, these are the humans I know. Easily shaken, easily guided. But Ellie did not match them. He watched her like she was simply another diplomat, not the most feared political weapon in the galaxy. Valera stepped closer to him again. Commander Ward, she said, you are not like the others. Ellie shrugged lightly. I've heard that before. His casual tone irritated her. Valera was used to people speaking to her with careful words and controlled breaths. Ellie's relaxed attitude made her feel as if she was losing control of the situation. She pressed her fingers against the edge of the table. A faint ripple of energy moved through her hand, invisible to the humans but powerful enough to unsettle their minds if she wanted. But Ellie remained calm. His heartbeat did not change. His breathing stayed steady. That confused her even more. Do you know what I have done? Valera asked him. Her voice was calm, but the room grew colder. Do you know how many leaders have fallen before me? Ellie nodded. I know your record. And you do not feel fear, she asked. He leaned back slightly. If I felt fear, I wouldn't be here. Another ripple of murmurs moved across the human officials. Some looked at Ellie with disbelief. Others looked at him with respect. No one had ever spoken to Valera like this. Valera narrowed her eyes. Very well, she said. Let us begin the negotiation. She sat at the opposite end of the table, her movements slow and controlled, like a predator settling into position. The treaty floated beside her, glowing softly. Ellie opened the first page on his tablet. Let's discuss your demands, he said. My terms, Valera corrected. Your demands, Ellie repeated. A spark of irritation flashed in Valera's eyes. She leaned forward slightly. Commander, you must understand something, she said. I do not offer options. I offer outcomes. Ellie met her gaze. Then maybe you came to the wrong planet. The room froze again. Valera's fingers tightened against the table. The air around her crackled slightly with her suppressed power. Some humans felt their skin prickle, sensing the pressure even if they didn't understand it. But Ellie did not react. Inside her mind, Valera felt something shift. She had broken stronger beings with only a few sentences. She had made entire councils kneel by simply entering the room. But this one human, this quiet, ordinary human commander, was resisting her without effort. It made no sense. Valera tried again, changing her strategy. She softened her voice. "Commander Ward," she said, "you must know your planet's position is weak. If you refuse this treaty, many powerful governments will align against you." Ellie nodded. "Maybe, but we won't sign away our freedom." Valera tilted her head. "Freedom means nothing if your world burns." Ellie smiled slightly. "We've survived worse." Valera blinked. She didn't understand. Most species spoke of fear when threatened. Most argued. Most begged. But this man did. None of that. He simply stayed grounded, steady, unmovable. Like a stone in a storm. Valera felt something new again. A strange, uncomfortable emotion. Was it frustration? No. Was it curiosity? Maybe. Or was it something even more dangerous? Respect. She couldn't tell yet. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. This negotiation would not be easy. And for the first time in years, Valera Threx found herself in a situation she could not completely control. She did not turn away. She did not retreat. She held Ellie's gaze for a long moment, trying to see through him. But all she saw was a human who refused to bow. And that alone changed the direction of the entire meeting. The air in the chamber felt different now. Something heavy, something electric, something no one could name. Valera sat silently, her sharp eyes fixed on Ellie. For the first time in her life, she wasn't sure how to continue. Ellie waited calmly, hands folded, as if he had all the time in the world. Valera finally spoke, her voice lower than before. "Human, what makes you so confident?" Ellie didn't smile, but his eyes held a quiet strength. "Confidence comes from knowing the truth." "And what truth is that?" Valera asked. "That we are not as alone as you think," Ellie replied. Something uneasy twisted in Valera's stomach again. She leaned forward. "Explain." Ellie tapped his tablet twice. The chamber lights dimmed further as a hologram flickered to life. It showed a map of space, human space, alien space, and the dangerous regions beyond. Valera felt her pulse quicken. "What is this?" she demanded. "Information," Ellie replied. "Information your people believed humans were too primitive to understand." Valera's eyes narrowed at the phrase. Primitive. That was what her own council always said about humans. They thought Earth was small, wild, not worth respecting. But the hologram in front of her said something else. Ellie zoomed in on a dark region of space. A region Valera recognized instantly. Her breath caught. "The silent rift," she whispered. Few races even knew the rift existed. Fewer survived encounters near it. It was a place of ancient power, unknown signals, and things even Valera's people feared to speak about. Ellie watched her reaction closely. "You know this place." Valera kept her face steady, but inside her mind, 1,000 alarms rang. "How did humans discover this?" she asked. "Because we've been listening," Ellie answered. "We detected the same signals your people tried to hide. We studied the transmissions, and we learned what they mean." Valera felt cold. "No, impossible. Humans should not have this data. They should not be able to decode it." Ellie continued. "Your government wants our technology because you're scared. You're scared of whatever is inside the rift." Valera's jaw clenched. "Watch your words." "This isn't an insult," Ellie said calmly. "It's truth." The chamber was silent. No one breathed. Valera felt something she had never felt during a negotiation. She was the one being cornered. Ellie stood up slowly, pushing back his chair. He walked around the table with quiet, steady steps. The humans watched with wide eyes. Even the guards held their breath. He stopped in front of Valera. "I know what you tried to do," he said softly. "You came here to take our discoveries and use them to protect your own people. I don't blame you. But you tried to control us. That was your mistake." Valera looked up at him. For the first time, her gaze didn't carry confidence. It carried something else. Uncertainty. Ellie continued. "The truth is, we've been preparing for a long time. We knew the galaxy wouldn't accept a stronger human race. We knew others would try to stop us." Valera whispered, "You prepared. For me." "For anyone," Ellie said. "Your people, the Rift, even threats we haven't met yet." He stepped back slowly. Then came the moment that changed everything. Ellie pressed a button on his wrist device. A soft hum filled the chamber. A faint blue shield flickered around him, almost invisible, but powerful enough that Valera felt it immediately. Her eyes widened. She knew this energy. She understood it instantly. It was the same kind of field that blocked her psychic influence earlier. "You see, Valera," Ellie said, "you didn't fail because you were weak. You failed because we evolved." Valera stared at him in silence. Evolved. That word hit her harder than any weapon. Ellie sat back down. "We didn't want to fight, but we're not afraid of one." Valera finally found her voice. "You outplayed me." Ellie shook his head. "No. You walked in expecting fear, and fear blinds even the strongest." Valera lowered her gaze for the first time in her diplomatic life. And something inside her cracked. Not painfully, but strangely. Respect. Real respect. This human had outmaneuvered her without violence, without threats, without shouting. He faced her power and answered with something stronger. Human will. Valera exhaled slowly. "Commander Ward, perhaps my people misjudged yours." Ellie nodded softly. "Or maybe you just finally saw us clearly." Valera closed her eyes for a moment. She had come to take. But now she understood. If humans were truly evolving this fast, if one single human could stand against her, then the galaxy was about to change forever. And Valera Threx, once feared by all, was now forced to make the first real decision of her life. Fight humanity, or stand beside them. Rumors moved through the Galactic Council like a cold wind. Every species felt it. Every officer whispered about it. An alien diplomat was coming to the human sector, and she was not just any diplomat. Her name was Valera Threx, and entire star systems feared her. She was famous for her power, but not the kind that came from weapons or fleets. Valera's weapon was her voice. Her presence alone could make generals freeze, and leaders sign any treaty she wanted. Some said she once forced a planet to surrender in only 10 minutes. Others said she could break minds with her cold stare. Whether those stories were true or not, one thing was clear. Valera believed no one could stand against her. And today, she was coming to Earth. The Human Council prepared for her arrival, but even they felt nervous. Valera was known for destroying the confidence of anyone who sat across from her. She never raised her hand, never fired a weapon. She simply used fear. Many alien governments already bowed before her because they couldn't face her pressure. But this time was different. This time, Valera wanted something important. Humans had recently developed new technology, strange, powerful, and unlike anything in the galaxy. And Valera wanted full control of it. She wanted Earth to sign a treaty that would give her people total access, while humans received almost nothing in return. It was a trap, wrapped in soft words and diplomatic rules. The human council chose one person to face her, a quiet man named Commander Ellie Ward. He was not a famous hero. He had no special powers. He had no political influence. Some people even wondered why he was chosen. But those who knew him understood the truth. Ellie Ward had something many others lacked. He could not be bullied. When Valera's ship arrived, the entire landing bay fell silent. The air felt heavy, as if the station itself feared her presence. Her tall, blue-silver form stepped out. Her eyes were sharp, glowing softly like a predator watching prey. The guards kept their distance. Even trained soldiers did not dare to look into her eyes for too long. She walked with slow, confident steps, knowing she controlled the room without effort. "Where is the human leader?" she asked. Her voice was calm but cold, a voice that was used to obedience. A young officer nervously pointed toward the council chambers. Valera didn't thank him. She simply turned and continued forward, fully sure she would win before the negotiation even began. Inside the chamber, dozens of humans waited. They felt her power like pressure on their chests. Some felt the urge to stand, to apologize, to submit. Valera enjoyed this reaction. Fear was comfort to her. It reminded her that she was above everyone else. Then her eyes found a man sitting quietly at the center table, Commander Ellie Ward. She looked him up and down. He did not seem impressive. He wore a simple uniform. His expression was calm. Too calm. Valera lifted her chin slightly. Most beings looked away from her eyes immediately. But this human didn't. He met her gaze, steady and unshaken. She walked toward him with slow steps. "So," she said, "you are the one chosen to speak for your people." Ellie nodded politely. "Yes, I am." Valera expected fear. She expected trembling hands, shaking breath, or nervous eyes. But Ellie offered none of these things. His voice remained steady. His eyes stayed firm. He seemed in control. Valera did not like that. She motioned to the treaty file floating beside her. "I hope you understand," she said softly, "that your planet is fortunate I am even willing to discuss this agreement. Many worlds have begged for my guidance." The humans around the room stiffened at her tone. But Ellie simply leaned back in his chair. "I read the treaty," he said. "It seems one-sided." Valera tilted her head. No one ever said things like that to her. "One-sided," she repeated. "Yes," Ellie said. "It gives your government full rights to our new technology, and it gives Earth nothing except restrictions." Valera smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. "And what is your concern?" she asked. Ellie met her gaze evenly. "My concern is that you think you can force us." A soft murmur moved through the room. Even Valera paused for half a second, surprised by his directness. Her eyes narrowed. She stepped closer to him, lowering her voice. "You are a brave one," she said, "or a foolish one." "Maybe both," Ellie answered. Valera studied him carefully. For the first time in years, she felt unsure. There was something in his eyes, something she did not recognize. He wasn't arrogant. He wasn't angry. He simply wasn't afraid. And that bothered her. She leaned in closer. "Do you really believe you can stop me?" she whispered. Ellie looked at her without blinking. "I believe," he said, "that humans are not as weak as you think." Valera's smile faded. The room felt colder. For the first time in her long career, Valera Threx sat in silence. Not because she was planning her next move, not because she was testing the humans, but because she was truly thinking. And that alone shocked her. She stared at the faint blue shield around Ellie, the one barrier she could not break. She had traveled across galaxies, shattered alliances, crushed rebellions, and made enemies kneel. But this human, this calm, simple, ordinary-looking human, had defeated her without lifting a weapon. It was not strength that broke her. It was truth. Ellie waited patiently, as if he understood the storm happening inside her mind. Finally, Valera spoke. Her voice was quieter now. Not weak, just honest. Something she was not used to being. "Commander Ward, you have changed this negotiation." Ellie gave a small nod. "We only want fairness." "Fairness," Valera repeated softly. "A rare thing in the galaxy." Ellie leaned forward. "That's why we're offering it." Valera looked around the chamber. The humans were watching her with steady eyes. Not submissive, not afraid, simply waiting. Even their silence felt like strength. She understood something now. Humans were not dangerous because of their weapons. Not because of their ships. Not even because of their new technology. They were dangerous because they refused to break. Valera lifted the treaty from her side. The glowing document floated between them. She stared at it for a long moment. "This treaty," she said slowly, "was written to control you." Ellie answered calmly, "We know." "And you still came to negotiate?" she asked. Ellie smiled slightly. "Because we hoped you could change." Valera felt her chest tighten. Hope. That was another rare thing in the galaxy. She lowered the treaty onto the table. With a single motion of her hand, the document dissolved into light. Gasps filled the room. The humans were shocked. Even Ellie raised an eyebrow. Valera spoke clearly, her voice strong again, but this time without arrogance. "I will write a new treaty with you." Ellie nodded. "A fair one." "Yes," Valera said. "A true alliance, human and friction." The words felt strange in her mouth, but right. She stood up slowly. The chamber grew silent again, but for the first time, the silence wasn't fearful. It was respectful. Valera looked down at Ellie. Not from above, not as a superior, but as an equal. "You shattered my arrogance today," she said quietly. "No one has ever done that." Ellie shook his head. "I didn't shatter anything. You opened your eyes." Valera felt an unexpected warmth in her chest. Respect. Yes, that was the word. Deep, real respect. She extended her hand. Ellie stood and took it. And in that moment, something historic happened in the Galactic Council chamber. The most feared diplomat in the galaxy shook hands with a human she once believed she could easily crush. Not a treaty. Not a deal. Not a threat. A partnership. A future. Valera looked around the room one last time. "When I return to my council," she said, "I will tell them the truth." "And what is the truth?" a human advisor asked. Valera's eyes glowed softly, not with power this time, but with clarity. "That humanity," she said, "is a force the galaxy must respect." A quiet pride filled the room. But Valera wasn't finished. "And I will tell them something else," she added with a slow breath. "That the future of the galaxy may depend on standing with humans, not against them." Ellie's eyes met hers. "Then we stand together." Valera nodded. Together. She turned to leave the chamber, her tall figure moving with purpose. But before stepping out, she paused at the doorway. She looked back at Ellie one last time. "You know," she said, "in all my years traveling the stars, I never feared anyone." Ellie waited. Valera's voice dropped to a soft whisper. "But today, I finally understand why the galaxy should fear you." Ellie frowned slightly. "Fear us? Why?" Valera gave a faint smile, gentle, humbled, almost human. "Because humans," she said, "do not bow. They rise." And with that, she walked away, changed, wiser, and carrying a new story back to the stars. A story that would spread across galaxies. One human stood firm. And even the strongest alien diplomat learned respect.